Directed by Luc Besson. Luc Besson, whose previous works include The Fifth Element, The Professional, and Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets. Oh, he's also a kind of a creep, marrying his second wife when she was only 16 and he was 32. And with the list of allegations from former students, employees, actresses of SA, maybe it's not a movie you should go support after knowing that information. I don't know what is with Hollywood allowing these directors to continue to work and distribute their movies, but more importantly, like, how do the crew and actors feel when they join a production like this? Do they know about some of these allegations against these directors, whether it's Luc Besson, Roman Polanski, or Woody Allen? I assume with Woody Allen and Roman Polanski, a lot of people know their history. Some of the stuff with Luc Besson, I actually didn't come up until after I watched the movie. I heard about some things in the past, especially around him marrying somebody young, and that was kind of the inspiration around The Professional. And that movie also had a few things that rated it out from Jean Reno. I think that's how you say his name, who was the lead in that film, is that there was supposed to be some kind of love story between him and Natalie Portman's character in that film, which at the time she was 12 years old. So what the and so knowing that information, maybe skip this movie. But I watched it anyways. I have AMC A list. I watch a lot of movies, maybe to a fault. I didn't have a lot of high hopes for this movie after seeing the trailer, and it was supposed to be released in the winter of 26, which I guess February is technically winter, but when I think of winter, I think of November, December of that year. Whereas January and February can kind of be dumping grounds for movies, although this year has not been too bad. There's been some decent movies that have come out that were pretty entertaining. This movie, from the trailer, kind of had some awkward visuals. You know, it said it was from Luc Besson, who's done Valerian and Fifth Element, which I think are great looking movies. Especially Fifth Element was one of my favorite movies growing up. Seeing that in high school, not to age myself, but this movie looked a little bit different in regards to some of the previous works I've seen of him. I'm sure he has other movies I haven't seen that kind of have different levels of budget and have different kind of aesthetics. And this one just looked a little bit low end, a little bit kind of cheesy in regards to the vibe it was going for. It also seems like it took a lot from 1992's Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula, from the set design and certain scenes and comparisons, from Keanu Reeves' John Parker, now played by Ewan's Abid, to the look of Caleb's old Dracula and Gary Oldman's version of Dracula. There's a lot of similarities with those characters, and when I was seeing some of these scenes, I just got these flashbacks of the Francis Ford Coppola movie, who also has some questionable things with people he supports. That's another story. It seems in the pursuit of creating something new, they are basically mimicking what is old. I know there's been some discussion about we want to put a new take, a more romantic take on this film, but there are some odd things in this one throughout, but which leads to it being kind of a mixed bag tonally, because there are some moments with like complete goofiness that don't fit the aesthetics that they're going for. Throughout the movie, it seems very kind of gothic romance, the vibe they're going for, the darker, slower pace. But then there's these moments throughout the film, especially with Christoph Waltz's character, that just provide this level of goofiness. It's hard to tell if this was an intentional choice by the director and the writer or the actors, or if it was something intentional by the actors knowing what kind of movie they were in. Christoph Waltz as a priest, or Van Helsing, really turned in a pretty fun performance with the material given, including this kind of a free-spirited whimsy in some of his scenes, such as helping himself to the wine and bread for communion while he's waiting in this church in one of the scenes, which was pretty hilarious. The priest and the assistant who come in to fetch him for this doctor after they caught somebody he needed to see was pretty hilarious when they walk in seeing him just drinking this wine and bread. I think Caleb gives a decent performance at Dracula, but doesn't really provide a menacing presence. He's more of a tragic presence throughout. He lost his love. Fortunate circumstance that it was kind of by his own hand. And Zoe Blue is fine as Mina, even though when I saw the trailer, I thought it was Lily Collins in this movie. And it wasn't until I saw IMDb before I watched the movie that I was like, oh no, that is not Lily Collins. That's somebody else. She does a decent job playing the two characters. Overall, the acting was, pretty good throughout the movie, outside some of the questionable goofiness of a few scenes. The movie does suffer from some pacing issues at a runtime of just over 2 hours. It's something you could definitely fill. there's a lot of time spent between Dracula's castle with him and Harker, and him giving his story to Harker throughout the film. That then jumps back to Paris, where Van Helsing is investigating one of Dracula's minions in order to try and find him and free him of his curse, which is his total goal. But at the same time, the story of the priest and Dracula, the way they jump between them is a little bit too far apart, and so there's this big disconnect on, okay, what are we, where are we going with this story? What's the overall goal? Eventually, the two stories come together as Dracula realizes that Harker's fiance is the reincarnation of Elizabetha. Once the two stories come together, it's kind of where they realize, oh, we need to kind of finish this movie and bring it to the climax. And I feel as if once Dracula, feeds on some people, becomes young again visually, and then goes to Paris, it kind of speeds up the movie. Everything before that is kind of a slow pace for the most part. There are a couple minor action scenes here and there, but it is until the last climax where they kind of ramp up the speed and get everything going. Final climax of the film, which was pretty entertaining but goofy at the same time. There's some gargoyles in the movie that they don't really put any lore behind, and I'm not sure exactly where that comes from. But it is a bit goofy throughout the film. There's some decent action towards the end, especially with Christoph Waltz's character kind of just being agnostic throughout the action. He's just kind of walking around as Dracula slaying all these soldiers. And then there's some characters that were earlier in the film that are of higher class, and one of them was to be married to one of his minions, and when they found out she's a vampire, things go downhill, and he kind of wants to get revenge and kill the person who turned her. When they have him in the movie at the end, he's like dual wielding pistols as they're raiding Dracula's castle. It doesn't make no sense. Harker is also there in the final part of the film. And even though it's not like the greatest movie with a lot of issues, especially when you're thinking about the people making it and what they have done in life or the allegations against them, even though not a great movie with a lot of issues, it was entertaining, especially with Christoph Waltz's performance and some of the goofy scenes that occurred throughout of it. So if you're into gothic romance, maybe it's something that will be interesting to you. But then again, should we really be supporting anything Luc Besson is part of? 2 stars.